When the Punisher made his MCU debut in season 2 of Daredevil, it was a tonal shift from the mainline MCU movies, and that's because Kevin Feige wasn't involved with these shows, and it was also being produced by Netflix, so they were able to kind of do their own thing with it to an extent, and by that they were able to make the characters a little bit more grounded, more grittier, and have more of a brutal tone to the shows, which was necessary for portraying these characters, especially the Punisher. But as time gone on, we saw the emergence of Disney Plus, and because of that, Disney has more of an involvement with the actual production of their shows, and as a result, a lot of their Disney Plus MCU shows basically just feel like stretched out versions of their movies with a lot of padding in them, which is kind of a shame. But they kind of had a return to form, or at least they were trying to portray themselves as having a return to form with the launch of their Marvel Spotlight banner, because at least the initial impressions I got from this is it was supposed to be more grittier, more grounded, or at least that's what they were saying about it, with the show Echo being the first show with underneath this Marvel Spotlight banner. And when I saw the first trailers for Echo, it looked like they were actually able to capture that Netflix feeling fairly well, or at least I got the feeling that's what they were trying to do with it. Of course, the show came out and they did seem to miss the mark on that, because besides the inclusion of some violence that could have been edited out, it really was just like another Disney Plus show, which doesn't give me a lot of hope for the upcoming Daredevil Born Again, because even though Kevin Feige fired the staff behind it and was trying to redo things in order to actually fix a lot of the problems with it, I still don't have a lot of confidence that they can actually portray the Punisher in an accurate manner that would be necessary for the character within the Disney Plus universe, even though it's having that Marvel Spotlight banner. But despite all that, Jon Bernthal, who actually did a pretty good job as the Punisher, still is adamant about trying to protect the character, because this is a character that he really cares about, and he understands that there's a lot of fans for this character, and he wants to do the character justice for them. I think there's a reason why the character has resonated as deeply and strongly as he has in the hearts and minds of comic book fans and first responders and people in the military and people all over the globe, Bernthal told Collider. And as a veteran myself, I can personally attest that the Punisher is a well-liked character within the military community, even when I was in, and that was before the MCU as a whole came about. But you can just ask most people when I was in who their favorite comic book character was, and the kind of standard answer would have been the Punisher. I think there's a little bit of Frank Castle in everybody. He exists very strongly inside of me, and I care about the character deeply. I also know that it's absolutely essential that if we do it right, and we have a real sacred integrity to the source material and to what is at the core of Frank. Jon Bernthal goes on to say that he wants to portray the character of Frank Castle as accurate as possible to the comic book. And I could even grant that he's sincere about that, because he does strike me as someone, or at least he's given me no reason to think that he doesn't actually care about the character. But at the same time, if the studio and executives don't actually want to portray the character comic book accurate, there's only so much that he can do. I mean, just look at Henry Cavill with The Witcher. He wanted to be an accurate portrayal of the character. The producers and writers had a different idea, so as a result, Henry Cavill left because they weren't faithful to the source material. And I'm wondering if we're going to get something like that, or at least they're going to portray the wrong version of it, because you look at the later versions of the Punisher from the comic book, and Marvel didn't actually like the character because he's basically from a different time, or at least in their minds, he was from a different time, and they didn't actually like what he represented. So they tried to not only get rid of him, but try to get rid of him in kind of an emasculating way by having his wife come back and chastise him for what he's been doing, and then divorcing him and selling off his assets so she can take half the money and stuff like that and leave him for someone. I mean, it was just trying to emasculate the character because, yeah, Marvel, the people at the comic book, didn't like the character and didn't like the people who were fans of the character. And that's not just coming from me, that's coming from Chuck Dixon, who was also a longtime writer of the Punisher. And he even says that the people at the studio, or the executives at Marvel, didn't actually like the Punisher, and in fact hated the people that were fans of the Punisher. And I'm talking like law enforcement, veterans, etc. They don't like him for the same reason DC doesn't like Guy Gardner, and fans like the Punisher for the same reason they like Guy Gardner. Most comic book characters are either brainiacs, mutants, scientists, you know, whatever. There's very few superheroes that have blue-collar origins. Frank Castle and Guy Gardner are blue-collar superheroes. In Chuck Dixon's words, New York elites didn't like the Punisher character, but blue-collar workers did like him because he was just kind of an average guy, so that's why he was so popular. And for a while, they let that slide because he made a lot of money for the comic book industry. But then when new people took over, they were kind of upset about the fact that this was such a popular character compared to a lot of their newer ones that they were creating themselves. So they wanted to kind of do away with that. And this came to a head when law enforcement and the military started embracing the character. And cops are wearing the symbol, our soldiers are wearing the symbol, oh, boo, boo, boo. We don't like them and we don't like them. We don't like the Punisher readers. We're going to take the Punisher and we're going to mangle him and we're going to destroy him. We're going to do what no other entertainment company has ever done. We're going to purposely take one of our intellectual properties and tear it to the ground. And that's what they did. I do agree that Jon Bernthal did a good job as a Punisher, and I believe he intends to actually do a good job in the Daredevil Born Again series for Disney+. My only issue is whether he's actually given the material to work with, because if he has bad writers that he has to deal with, well, there's only so much him as an actor can actually do on this. Now, a point in the favor of this, though, is they're bringing in some of the creatives behind the Punisher series for Netflix, so that is a good sign. However, Kevin Feige is still involved with the Disney Plus shows, and he wasn't involved with the Netflix ones like I previously pointed out. So with his involvement, I have my doubts that they're actually going to portray the character correctly. And I do have reason to believe that they're going to try to portray the latter versions of the Punisher from the comic books, where they're trying to destroy the character because they didn't like the fan base of said character. So I don't know. I mean, we really don't know what's going to happen until we start seeing something more concrete. But I'm not even saying a trailer will do it justice, because we saw with Echo, the trailer for that looked a lot better than the show actually was. So even if we got a trailer for Daredevil Born Again and it looks like it's going to be good, it could still be deceiving. So right now I'm a bit pessimistic on the prospects of having another live action Daredevil and another live action Punisher, this time on Disney Plus platform. I think they're going to try to ruin the character, even if it's not deliberately. I think they're going to do it just out of sheer incompetence, because that's basically been the word that defines the MCU since Endgame.